Welcome to the Action for Happiness podcast. As always, I'm your host, Guy. Action for Happiness is a movement of people committed to building a happier and more caring society. Visit the website for more details and to access the latest podcasts and videos. On today's episode, we speak with Rob Beemer, the director of arguably one of the most important movies on the subject of mindfulness.
And understand that this is the way our brains are built. There's nothing wrong with you. We're all in this situation. You have the scientific evidence backing it up, and that science is, growing and becoming stronger every year. It's something where you have to be flexible, and it's a great chance to be collaborative with, whether it's the cameraman in the field or the editor in the edit bay. So it's a nice collaborative process.
Rob has been directing movies for over 25 years, and his latest venture, the Mindfulness Movement, is still in the making. It features incredible interviews with Jon Kabat-Zinn, George Mumford, and Deepak Chopra, to name a few. We talk about how the idea of the movie came to be, Rob's personal mindfulness journey, and much more. Visit themindfulnessmovement.com to help support the movie. All right, well, first of all, thank you very much for doing this, Rob.
Yes.
When I saw, I don't know if crowdfunding is the right word for it, but there was a project going on whereby you were raising funds to edit for a movie. The movie being on the subject of mindfulness. And, what's unusual is that the interviews and the filming had already been done. and usually for a project of this size, that's what people usually ask for help, saying, I have this idea, help me. But no, it's like, no, the hard work's been done, right?
Right.
The graph's been done, but now we need some money to put this all together. Why don't you begin a little bit about how, first of all, you have over 25 years in directing and putting films together. Say, how did this project come about, and why mindfulness?
Sure. Well, and first, thanks for having me, Guy, and I really appreciate the work you're doing to help spread the word of mindfulness and the benefits. So yes, as you said, I've been making documentaries for about 25 years, a lot of things for History Channel and Discovery Channel, Nat Geo, all those different channels out there. And but this one, the Mindfulness Movement documentary, is really a passion project of mine. So I started practicing a little more than 10 years ago. And it's helped me a lot, and so I just wanted to try to use my skills in documentary making to help spread the word.
Mindfulness is such a deep topic. It's such a vast topic, So when you said, let's do a film on mindfulness, what direction did you have in mind? What was, how did you foresee that taking place?
Well, there is some of the challenges, of defining mindfulness. A lot of people say, a lot of people say, oh, that sounds great, but what is it exactly? I think that's an important part of the film that we'll do is, making sure people realize there's a specific type of meditation called mindfulness meditation. But really what we're focusing on more is mindfulness as a certain quality of attention. That it's a quality of attention that you can carry throughout the day, just catching yourself when you need to, coming back more to the present moment, so that you can, live a better life, healthier, happier life, have better relationships with people, because instead of going off into fight or flight mode, you're able to catch yourself and say, hold on, let me respond to this person with more wisdom and patience. So that's our focus, is this kind of newer secular form of mindfulness as the quality of attention throughout the day. And what I wanted to do was to show it being used in all different parts of society. So we go to schools and Fortune 500 companies and work with police forces and even prisoners, a therapist. So we're really trying to show how this can help anybody in any profession, any life situation.
So would you say that this is more directed to people that already have an understanding of what mindfulness is? Because I look at some of the speakers that you have on there, for example, the John Kabat-Zinn's, the Daniel Goleman, the Sharon Salzberg, and you think, wow, if you know mindfulness, you're like, wow, that's the holy grail, right? But if you don't know mindfulness, then maybe maybe Goldie Hawn and George Mumford that you have in there as well is maybe that's I recognize that name. And I think as individuals we tend to see, what do we know, what are we familiar with? So was it for those that are already interested in mindfulness and to help develop that, or was it for someone, I have no idea, I might be tuning into Netflix and I'm scrolling through and I see this thing, okay, let me have a go. What was the aim?
I think it's, if we can accomplish it, really to do both, because we want to invite people who are new to mindfulness and make it accessible for them. But also, I think we're showing enough different facets of mindfulness where somebody who's already familiar with it will feel engaged and learn new things. So we're really, I think, trying to do both. And, that's a challenge also with the many documentaries that I've done over the years where, it could be something very scientific, say a documentary about asteroids, but so you want to make it, you know, easy enough to understand for people who don't know much, but also hold the interest of people who already know a lot. So I think that's what we're really going for here is we're going to make it accessible enough for people who are just finding out about mindfulness, but also we're going to cover so many facets that even someone who's been practicing for a long time, I mean, I was certainly learning new things as I was doing the filming and working both with the well-known people and everyday people. I think everyone has some valuable insights and some different ways that they like to practice. And so
Yes.
I think we're all constantly learning. So I think really the people who already know the topic will definitely
Yeah.
learn a lot too.
Well, one thing that drew my attention as I was, reading your information, which is why I reached out, was there was a lot of crossover and similarity as far as the guests that, I'd been speaking to. And you had, I mentioned the Daniel Golemans, the John Kabat-Zinn, the Chad Mentang.
Right.
These are really important figures in this mindfulness movement because in their own unique ways, they're able to disseminate the information that for some people it's very difficult, but in their own way, they might, they're able to target their specific audience. So, how was it? How did you decide who to interview, and how difficult was it to go, to get them to, what was your pitch? What was your spin on it to get them to take part in this movie?
It has been a long process up until this point. So, I mean,
Yeah,
this has been evolving over a few years. And I think, it was the mix of I was hoping to be able to include some of these, you know, main names in the world of mindfulness, really well regarded figures, but also then include some everyday people
yeah,
to have that mix.
yes,
So, I just started reaching out to people, and it's a similar process to the other documentaries that I've done over the years. You start doing research, figuring out who are the best people to talk to, start contacting, you get through to certain people and you ask them for referrals, and, gradually the process expands. And, I was lucky enough to be able to get a lot of great people. And I think it mattered to them that this was a real passion project of mine, that I practiced myself, that I knew a lot about the topic already.
yeah,
Especially like with John Kabat-Zinn, he was saying, my gosh, I get so many requests. But, when you were saying that you've been practicing and that this is a real passion project and you want to, help get the word out, then that made a big
yeah.
difference to him.
I think John's amazing, and when you think of potential, you know, peace Nobel Peace Prizes and stuff, the more you get into mindfulness and you see that effects that it has on people, and if we're looking at global change or significant change, and we see so much negative crap throughout the year, but a lot of people don't realize there's this whole positive movement. And he really is that inspiration from from in the early 70s before the science.
Right.
It was able to, like, no, he stayed strong. And this MBSR, when you think of mindfulness and courses, it's his curriculum that is at the heart of that. And I've had several podcasts with him now, and I'm very blessed to say that we've become dear friends. And he's asked, I host his Facebook page, or co-host, several of his Facebook pages. He sends me information of how to keep it up to date without being too intrusive. He's very cautious about social media, but at the same time understanding it's a beautiful tool
Yeah, definitely.
when used in the right way. So so that's why I'm very inspired by this movie that you're making. And when I see people like George Mumford, and when we think of like his influence on Michael Jordan and the two main guys, Kobe and Shaq,
Right.
you
Well,
do
I'm
think,
I'm from
wow.
Chicago, so I'd say the main guys are Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean George is great, and it was a real pleasure to see him kind of in action. We filmed him working with the Boston University women's field hockey team.
Hmm.
And, as he says, every time someone wants to put him on camera, they always stick a basketball in front of him. So he
Yeah.
appreciated being able to,
Hmm.
work with a different group, and especially, female
Yeah.
athletes.
Hmm.
And he also works with all different types of groups, as he likes to say, from Yale to jail, and working with business groups and all of that.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, it was a real treat to get to know him, and
Hmm.
just such a generous guy. Actually, he had gave a copy of his book to each of us on the
Nice.
crew, and so
Hmm.
yeah, I mean everyone in this world. I mean, it's not a surprise that they're all very kind,
Hmm.
generous people,
Yep.
and when you talk about world peace earlier too, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, so pie in the sky, that's ridiculous. But one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is because it seems like mindfulness really is one of those foundations where
Hmm.
if you can increase the amount of mindfulness from kind of the bottom up of
Hmm.
everyday people, then you're going to help create the conditions to move the world in more positive directions. And so, as you said, with John and Chade Ming Tan has a big peace initiative. So
Hmm.
I just want to do my part to help us all get there.
And a personal favorite of mine, and he was actually on the Joe Rogan podcast. I don't know if that's a podcast you're familiar with, but it's so Dan Harris and his mate. I can't remember the name of his mate, but they were on literally yesterday on his show, and it was Joe Rogan is famous for doing these 2.5, 3 hour podcasts, and they literally just mindfulness, meditation all the way through, and I was just like, yes, because Joe Rogan meditates, and he has an isolation chamber, a flotation tank, where he goes, to, and that's how I first got into to flotation tanks, because he was talking about how it's literally the perfect environment for meditation. No smells, no sounds, no sight, no, this sensation of floating, so you can focus on the breath with less distractions than anywhere else. And they went really hardcore into mindfulness and meditation. And then when I saw Dan Harris as one of your guests, it really makes me feel that this movie will have an impact, because yes, you are coming from the point of view of incarcerated inmates. You are coming from the view of these young urban um, schools
Right.
where mindfulness is helping in so many ways. It's helping in government. Tim Ryan, I mean, how did you get Tim Ryan? Because in England, I don't, in our regional representatives, he is equivalent of the Ohio state, right?
Right.
Is
Yeah.
it
Well,
senator there, or governor, or
he's
what's his role there?
he's a U.S. representative, so he's in a certain district section of Ohio.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it was, I think, really interesting to be at the event that Tim Ryan and Sharon Salzberg held in Washington D.C. that
Hmm.
that we filmed for the movie. And to hear them talking about how to use mindfulness to help manage your own emotions in what is a very kind of chaotic, and unsettling time. And then also to be able to use mindfulness, as you're getting yourself centered, to then reflect and go act in a way that you think will be healthy and helpful. And so that message, because I think a lot of times people think, oh, okay, yeah, I'll practice mindfulness and I'll just sit there and I'll meditate and I'll get all blissful. But then it's not going to really motivate me to do anything. What
Hmm.
about the action part? And I think that, they did a great job of explaining how this really does then lead to activism. It leads when you're centered and when you've got a good idea of, what is really a wise course of action, then you
Hmm.
can take that action knowing
Hmm.
that you're, making a positive difference.
Yeah.
Um, and just like, with John Kabat-Zinn, one of his messages, the importance of ethics behind
Hmm.
mindfulness. And so, right action, if your mind is in the right place, then when you take action, you're taking the right kind of action.
Hmm.
So I think that's one of the messages that we really want to get across too, is this isn't about you sitting there in a quiet room and
Hmm.
improving yourself. It
Yeah.
really is you getting yourself in a better state of mind so that then you can go out in the world and have a
Yeah.
positive impact on people,
Yeah.
whether it's, family or at your
Hmm.
workplace, and then growing into bigger and bigger spheres.
You're listening to the Action for Happiness podcast. This episode, we speak with Rob Beemer, the director of arguably one of the most important movies on the subject of mindfulness.
So a couple of questions that personal questions that I had for you, Rob, when I was preparing this is the key learning points for me when I started getting into meditation is, how many thoughts we have every day. It's just this constant from the minute you wake up, presentation I got to do later on. I got to go to the supermarket. We've run out of milk, and I heard it said we have approximately 60 to 70,000 thoughts every day, and 60,000 of anything is exhaustive. But at the same time, understanding that the reason why we've evolved as a species is those that however long ago it was that were on the lookout for danger. Is that a stick or is that a snake? Is that a shadow or is that a lion or a leopard in there? It's that always on the lookout has allowed us. So in a way, it's understanding the beauty of that. Yes, we're all in love, but if we can learn to appreciate that is an evolutionary gift, and that we should embrace it with positivity. It's like, well, that's why we're here today. And then that's a small exchange for this, for these feelings of anxiety, for these, why do we always have this negativity bias where we tend to focus either on the negativity of the past or the future, but not really being in the present.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that served us well back in the caveman days, and the big challenge of our times with all of the technology now is trying to figure out, how do we work with the brains that we have and the way that they evolved in this very different world now. And to me, mindfulness is one of those great tools because, one of the big misconceptions is, as you were saying, we have so many thoughts throughout the day, and a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to start meditating, and then they have thoughts popping up all the time, and they think, oh, well, I'm not supposed to have any of those.
I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, I'm doing it
Yeah. Or I
wrong. I'm
can't
not good
meditate.
at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
And so one of the big points that we will make in the film is that, as you said, our brains are just built to have thoughts all day long.
Yeah.
And so the process is just, trying to come back, whether it's focusing on your breath or something
Hmm.
else, where when it wanders, you bring it back.
Yeah.
And then that's the good part. That's the opportunity. You've just,
Hmm.
as people say, that's like doing a rep at the gym. You've just
Yes.
increased your mind's ability to focus. And
Hmm.
so I think when people understand that, and understand that this is the way our brains are built. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
We're all in this situation. And here's a way that's been scientifically proven to help.
Yeah.
Then, I think that it's a lot easier to embrace at that point.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's really important that you guys touch upon the science behind the mindfulness.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the keys to why it spread so much is that
Yeah.
you have the scientific evidence backing it up, and that science is, growing and becoming stronger every year. Someone like Dan Harris, it was so great to hear that he was a complete skeptic, but as he looked into it more, he saw that there was, real science behind it, and that gave him the confidence to try it. And, I think that's really helping it come out of this,
Hmm.
as you said earlier, this view of, oh, this is for people who are into crystals, and then now it's in Fortune 500 companies, and Harvard Business School with,
Yeah.
interviewed Bill George. So, I mean, it's everywhere. And, I think there is still some work to get over those
Yeah.
misperceptions. Recently we had a comment, I think it was on our Twitter feed, of this guy accusing mindfulness of being a cult and like L. Ron Hubbard and things like that.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah, and we tried to explain, actually there is real science behind it, and some people are willing to actually look into that with an open mind, and some aren't yet, and that's okay. We'll get there.
Did you hit the financial target that you were aiming for?
Well, it is, as an independent project, it is a challenge, and as you were saying, it's great that we've already done a lot of the hard work of
Hmm.
lining up all the people and going and filming all across
Yeah.
North America. We're in still a process of raising funds, so we are starting post production, but we're still raising funds in order to do everything, all of those steps that you need to finish it. I'm based in Los Angeles and have had the privilege of working with a lot of great people. So we're
Yeah.
working with award-winning editors and
Mm,
composers
mm,
and
mm.
graphics people. So
Yeah.
it's great that I've already worked with that caliber of people, and that's the challenge is that they are not cheap, and so you have to make sure that you have the funding to
Yeah.
really do it right. And
Yes.
we're happy with the progress that's been made so far, but
Yeah.
certainly still continuing that process
Yeah.
as we go.
So, since my podcast went from audio to video, I understand the painstaking process in editing. Mine's on a very elementary level, but I know that you can have an amazing podcast, but if the editing is not done right, you don't share the message, or the message will be completely different. And as I was looking through, your long list of guests, and the speakers on your movie, it's like, wow, there really is a challenge. And into how do you take all the gems? Do you just bullet point them across the thing, or but in a movie, how do you take the viewer on that journey? So that at the end it is that message. Because you can get lost in all that information and just like let's just do this, and so how many people are on board as far as helping to say, well, this is what the message should be, and this is how we should edit it, and do we lead with all our most famous guys at the beginning, or
Right.
so how does that brainstorming, and how does that, because you could like literally make 5, 6, 7 different movies from the content that you have, right?
Right.
There's so much you could do.
Yeah, that is a challenge. And it's whatever the topic is, that's always a challenge when you do the
Yeah.
documentary, because when you go out and film, you want to get as much as possible of every aspect that you think will be
Yeah.
interesting and compelling. But then obviously you can only get so much into the final product.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge, and I think what we're really trying to do, and it's something that evolves as you go along. So you come up with a plan for filming, and then you go filming, and that plan changes a little bit while you're out there, and then you
Yeah.
come up with an outline for editing. But then when you start editing, that will evolve, and you see which
Mhm.
parts are working and which parts you can trim and things like that.
Mhm.
So So it's a fun process where it's always evolving, and
Yeah.
but it's also not for the faint of heart. If you're someone who says like, okay, I need to do this exactly how I'm planning it from the very onset, it's something where you have to be flexible, and it's a
Yeah.
great chance to be collaborative with whether it's
Mhm.
the cameraman in the field or the editor in the edit bay. So
Yeah.
it's a nice collaborative process, and really what we want to do is we want to get the information across, but in a way where we're still telling compelling personal stories where people might not even realize how much information they've gotten. We don't want to just say like, okay, for 10 minutes, here's all the science.
Yeah.
It's a process of,
Hmm.
even with these well-known teachers of, getting to know a little bit of about them on a personal basis. How did they first get into it? They may be a world-renowned figure in this now, but they had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And so hearing about that, how they first got into it, and why they've decided to devote their lives to
Yep.
this topic. And so that mixture of information and personal stories and experts and everyday people, I think, will be very compelling, and will really help get the information across in a way where people don't even necessarily realize how much they've learned.
One thought that immediately popped into my mind when I was watching this is like people like, even like Jim Carrey or Emma Watson, who plays Hermione in the Harry Potter series, massive into mindfulness and meditation. Was ever a thought perhaps of maybe getting a more younger base to feature in this as well?
Right. Well, I think when we're talking, to Jade Meng Tan and Rich Fernandez, who
Hmm.
started the Google program,
Yeah.
they figured out how to present this for, the younger tech people in Silicon
Hmm.
Valley. And so we talk about that,
Yeah.
how to put it in terms that younger people who are very technology oriented can really
Hmm.
understand. And also then the people working with the kids in the Baltimore schools, hearing,
Yeah.
how it impacts them, finding out about, how Harvard Business School students, approach this. Um, and then, working with the therapist in New York, one therapy practice where the woman who owns that, deals with a wide age range of people. Um, so yeah, I think some of the people, everyday people that we'll meet along the way are younger. We did
Hmm.
some filming at Northwestern University with a young adult cancer survivor group that
Wow.
has really gotten a lot of benefit out of using
Hmm.
mindfulness both through their treatment process and afterwards. So yeah, I
Yep.
think we'll show a good age range of people, and
Cool.
yeah, make sure that everyone feels like one part or another is
Hmm.
will really speak to them.
All right. So when can us fans expect to see this movie on the big screen? Because your aim is what, theaters and then onto the online streaming kind of platform.
Right. Yeah, it would be kind of a staggered release. So we're hoping later this year, 2018, to have everything ready. Hopefully by the fall, we'd love to do it in conjunction with the United Nations International Day of Peace, which is in September. I think that would be a very fitting tie-in for it. So, and then yes, we would start with release in theaters, and then do kind of staggered in terms of working with an Amazon or a Netflix, and even regular TV broadcasts and DVDs, downloads.
Mhm.
So yeah, making it available in a number of ways so that we can reach as many people as possible. And with all the great experts that we have, and the communities that they can reach, and Deepak Chopra is one of our experts, and
Mhm.
also a producer, and so obviously he's got a great global reach. So
You're in good hands. Yeah.
yeah, so we really just as I said at the beginning, the goal has just been to use my skills making documentaries to help spread the word about the benefits of mindfulness to as many people as possible. So in terms of distribution, we would do the as many forms of distribution as possible too.
And I love that because, I've been in a job for 11 years now, but, I've read so many books and so many great podcasts about how to combine your passions
Right.
to live the life that you lead. And, for me, it's always been great conversation and helping people. And, mindfulness just it was a subject that, because we love philosophy, and mindfulness is extremely philosophical. There's the laboratory of your own mind. There is so many amazing lessons that you can learn as you kind of progress on this, on this meditation journey.
Right.
And, and I just love that idea of, well, what if I can make a living of this? And what if I can dedicate most of my time to sharing and to, helping, I don't want to say spread because John doesn't like the word spread, but, kind of whatever, think of another word to replace that, but, to get it out there. And, and the work that you're doing is, it's a perfect example. You've got the best of the best coming together to really give this powerhouse of a movie. So I'm really excited.
Great. Thank you.
So my last question to you, Rob, is, what matters most for you?
I think to me, it's in terms of mindfulness, it's this idea that, there's many ways that you can practice this and develop this and incorporate this into your life. So I think to me, the most important part of the film is to show that there's many ways to develop it, many ways to practice, many moments throughout our day when we can use it. So really just this idea that it can be incorporated, by anyone into any aspect of their life. Because it's just one of these foundational skills that can be developed that really can help people. So, and in a bigger picture sense, again, it's just me using the skills that I have to do my small part to try to get this out there. And I appreciate the work you're doing with the mindfulness news and the
thank you.
Action for Happiness. Yeah, it's great.
It's all, like you said, it's a passion. It's a passion project. And, one of the biggest things that I've learned, it's the network and it's the community that you build from this. And it's so, I could have never have dreamed of it.
Right.
And when you have this amazing network of people that are making huge waves and influencing the world, it's, you're doing something right. You're doing something good. And it's that, doing good feels good kind of vibe.
Right. Yeah. And one of my favorite phrases is we're all better off when we're all better off. So that idea that, if you're helping make things better, then that's, it's helping yourself. It's helping everyone else.
All right. So if we want to contribute, if we want to find out more about you, but find out more about the movie and get involved, what is the best way to do that?
I think the easiest way is to go to the website, so the mindfulnessmovement.com.
Check the link here.
Yeah.
Check the link here.
Thank you. We've got other social media, and on the website you can see the links to the other social media, but that's probably the easiest to just start with and remember. And then from there you can find out more about the film. You can click on a link to donate. You can find the other social media. So we're just continuing that process, and really appreciate being able to talk to you and let your viewers and listeners know about it.
We hope for your, for amazing success for the movie. We really hope this is a great conduit for the message and for your work. And, we'd love to have you back.
That would be great. And you'll have to come to the premiere.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
And remember, if you would like to help create a kinder and happier world, please get involved with Action for Happiness. You can join thousands of others who are spreading a bit more happiness in their homes, workplaces, schools, and local communities. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow to keep up to date with all our content. Find out more at actionforhappiness.org. Join the movement. Be the change.